Hello and welcome to Quest 3, The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey, or The Desolation of Smog, or There and Back Again. I guess it depends on which version you see. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief background on J.R.R. Tolkien, the author, and then talk a little bit about the lands of Middle-earth, just in case you haven't seen The Lord of the Rings or read any of the other stories. So, let's get started. First, J.R.R. Tolkien. Who was J.R.R. Tolkien? Well, he was actually an Anglo-Saxon professor that lived in England during the middle of the 20th century. Remember Beowulf and the Anglo-Saxon Old English language that none of us could understand? Well, this guy could. He could probably speak it if you wanted him to. So that's his background. He's not an author. He's a language professor. That's what he did. He was heavily influenced by his language studies, and he was also influenced by World War II. Mr. Tolkien was around during the German invasion of Britain, so he obviously had some baggage that he was carrying with him, and we see a lot of that in his stories. So we have a man who's very smart, a lot of time on his hands, likes languages a lot. So what does he do? He decides that he is going to create a novel, and not just a novel, but an entire world to go with it. Here's a picture of him as an older man, probably closer to the time that he would have actually written the stories. So, what does he do? He creates a land called Middle-earth. It actually has a lot of names, but Middle-earth is the one you are going to want to know. Middle-earth is supposed to be an alternate version of our Earth. It's supposed to be Earth when magic still existed. Earth just as humans were starting to take their first steps in taking over the continent, but there were still other creatures left on the world. There were hobbits, there were elves, there were dwarves, there were wizards. We'll talk about all of those in a few minutes. The idea, though, was that as humans started to take over, all of the other races started to disappear until eventually we just have the world we have today. Tolkien was trying to create a mythology for the British people. I'm sure you've learned all about Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse mythology. Well, England really doesn't have one. So what Tolkien was doing is making one for them. So let's take a look at some of the different races that we have here. In the top left, we have an example of a dwarf. They're rather short. They all have beards. They're very angry. They use axes a lot. These aren't dwarves like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We have elves. Elves looked like humans, except they all looked good. They were immortal, and they have the pointy ears, and a lot of them also had long hair. These aren't like Santa's elves. These are superhumans. We have men, you see down here, riding the horse, identical to humans today, and then you have hobbits. And hobbits are really unremarkable because they're really just like normal people, but smaller. They're not strong like the dwarves. They're not immortal like the elves. They're just sort of subpar humans. And so the idea that a hobbit is a main character is actually a big deal. We also have some evil races. At the top here, we have an example of an orc. The idea was that orcs originally were elves, but they sort of went off on their own path and were corrupted, and you can see the pointy ears remain, but otherwise they're rather scary people. And then you have trolls. Trolls are sort of deformed versions of ents or some other creatures that live out there. So there is a difference. And in fact, there are many, many, many more races than I'm getting into here, but you don't want to know about those. Let me give you a brief history of Middle-earth. We have our stories about how the world was created in our society. Middle-earth had its own language. The idea was this. In the beginning, the world was created by a being named Ea. I don't know how that's pronounced. It actually had a bunch of different definitions, but the idea was that one being sang a song, and by singing this song, it brought the world into creation. The head people of this world were named the Valar. The Valar are sort of like the Greek gods. They're up there on Olympus. They have their superior society. And one of those was named Melkor. That's what this is supposed to be. You have the head Valar singing here, bringing the world into existence, and then you have Melkor, darker. He's singing his own song and bringing some discord into the story. The beginning of the world ends as Valar are able to create the elves, and they bring about the planet Earth. In the first age of Middle-earth, we have the creation of the elves, we have Melkor deciding he doesn't want to be a part of the Valar anymore, going off on his own. He kidnaps elves and changes them. He turns into this evil being named Morgoth, and then he has a great war with the elves and the Valar in which he is defeated. That is the first age. And you'll notice this is similar to the story in the Bible where the devil is previously an angel. He turns away, there's a war in heaven, and he is cast out. He is cast into hell and destroyed. In the second age, we have almost the same story. This right here is Sauron. He was a lieutenant for Morgoth, and this is what he looked like at the beginning of the second age, and by the end, he looks like this. He's become evil. So in the second age, we have the elves. They create superior human beings named Númenóreans. However, the Númenóreans are tricked by Sauron, and because they are tricked, they are killed and cast out of paradise. Sauron then takes over the entire world by using his evil rings, and at the end of the second age, the ring is cut off of Sauron's finger. He is defeated for now, and the second age comes to an end. So, the third age is the age in which The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings take place. In the third age, the One Ring is still lost. Sauron had it cut off his finger, but nobody knows where it is. Men have no king. They are supposed to take over from the elves, but they don't have a ruler, and so they're sort of just wandering around. The elves plan to leave Middle-earth. They have had enough, and they're going to go home to be with the Valar. And a darkness is said to be growing. And so that is where our story takes place. Now, there's other characters as well. If you've seen the movies, you know that we have Gandalf and we have Saruman. They are wizards. Who are the wizards? Are they men? Are they Númenóreans? Wizards are actually from a group called the Malar. The Malar are like the Valar, but they are not quite as high-ranking. Gandalf looks like an old man, and so does Saruman here, but actually they're very powerful beings, and they are sent from far above to meddle in the affairs of Earth. Does all of this really matter when you read The Hobbit? Not really. But in The Hobbit, you will see dwarves a lot. You will see hobbits. You will see goblins. You will see orcs. And you'll see Mr. Gandalf walking around. So it helps to know all of these things. So I want you now to go to the next video. It's actually the prologue to The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings takes place after The Hobbit, but this will give you a good introduction into the story of The Hobbit. All right, well, thanks for stopping by and learning a little bit about J.R.R. Tolkien and the world of Middle-earth as well. Let me know if you have any questions or just use the internet, and enjoy the story. Have a great day.